plan on changing the world just like me. You could be the chairwoman and I'll be the trustee. Let me give all to your benefit. Then I'll get blessed out my deficit.
Welcome back to Your Corporate IQ. I am Tangia, your host.
And I'm your co-host, Lishez Solage.
Lishez. Ooh, girl, you know what time it is. Is your makeup done?
Yes.
Is the hair ready?
Yes.
Pearls on. Okay. Yes. Okay. Check, check, and check. So, listeners, in the words of Q-Tip, high, low, or even open toe. Put your heels on, baby. And if you're a dude, you can put your boots on. We'll take that too. So, again, like we always do, we want to thank you for joining your Corporate IQ podcast, where we will discuss the pearls and the perils of corporate America with a lens from the people of color's experience. Today's segment is on corporate leaders and giving back. Eric Johnston and 100 Black Men. But before we start, our standard disclaimer is the views expressed by your Corporate IQ and our guests today are our own and do not reflect the views of any company or organization. So, Lishez, I'm so excited about our guest today. This man got it going on. Let me tell you, Mr. Eric Johnston has spent 15 years in the government affairs discipline and currently serves as a director of federal government affairs for Marriott International. He was the former director of government relations for Coca-Cola. Snap, snap, snap. Eric holds a bachelor's degree in finance from Virginia Tech and a master's degree in business from Hampton University. Ooh. He is an advisory board member for his alma mater, Virginia Tech Pamplin School of Business, and the recent recipient of the 2023 Top Lobbyist Award by the National Institute for Lobbying and Ethics. Join us all. Everybody, put your hands together for Mr. Eric Johnston, and congratulations, man.
Thank you. What's going on, friends?
We are excited.
Yeah, I'm excited to be with you guys. I appreciate the intro. The check is in the mail. Appreciate you bigging me up like that.
It's all true. Facts.
Oh man, my friend, so proud of you. You already know that, but I want to say it again and again. I think I congratulated you back then. I'm doing it again. So proud of this brother right here.
Yes.
Appreciate you, Lishez. It's it's been a pleasure, and look forward to this conversation. This is gonna be dope. I'm excited.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, let's dive in. Let's start with your fabulous career journey in government affairs. Take me back to the beginning and how you transitioned into government affairs. Let's do that.
Yeah. Well, Tangiel mentioned my background at Virginia Tech and then Hampton. So I was a finance major all the way back then, nothing to do with politics or anything. I majored in finance undergrad, then I went to Hampton to get my MBA in finance. And I graduated in 2008. And you guys will remember that was not a good time to graduate with your MBA or try to get into the workforce, in earnest. Actually, at that time, I had 2 job offers rescinded, right? That I thought I was going to be working in that field, going back home. Originally, I'm from New York, going back home to New York to work on Wall Street, and 2 job offers rescinded. And I was like, what am I going to do? I randomly came up to the DC area to visit with a friend, and we were in this barbershop in Prince George's County. And I noticed this gentleman, he was getting his haircut, this Black man. He had a Virginia Tech pin on, and I was like, oh, I need to know this guy. So I shake his hand, introduce myself, come to find out his name's Major Riddick. And if you're familiar with Maryland politics, you'll know that Major was the first Black chief of staff to any governor in Maryland history. And at the time, he had his own lobbying firm. So that's how I got started. I worked my first 7 years of my career for his firm. And it was off to the races. I didn't know anything about politics, about lobbying, about anything like that. But he was like, "Hey, you're pretty good at this." So I stuck around, and 15 years later, here we are.
Wow.
Wow, I love that. What I heard there was that you just took a chance to speak to that brother. You're like, you know what? I need to know him, and I'm going to introduce myself to him and do what it needs to do. That's what I like about what you said.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, and there, knowing Virginia Tech, we know that there aren't many Black folk that go to Tech. Our Black alumni population at this point is pretty sizable, but in any year, any point in time, like the population isn't really large, right? So, seeing a Black man being proud enough to wear the Virginia Tech pin, I was like, I have to know this guy, right? We have to be friends. So it was a great experience working for him. I owe him many of thanks.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love that. I love that. It's kind of I'm going off track, but I'm going to come back. I know
Yeah.
that you are a fraternity guy as well. Do you think
Oh,
that being in a fraternity kind of instills that in you, right? So there's that kind of communal thing with being in a fraternity. And so maybe that gave you that courage to go ahead and like, you know what, Virginia Tech, it's the same type of thing. When you see your frat brothers, there's no problem with you going up to them and introducing yourself. Maybe that was in you because of your fraternity. What do you think?
well, being a part of the oldest, boldest, and coldest fraternity that ever was, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, I would have to say yes. But you're spot on, right? Like the brotherhood that is instilled and fostered with our fraternal organizations is critical to really have not just have the confidence, but feel proud in the not just the organization, whether it be a university or sorority or anything else, really feeling proud about what you've accomplished and connecting with other people through that, if that makes sense.
I love
Right.
it. I love it. We'll return to this concept of brotherhood because we'll see it play
Hey,
out over and over again throughout our discussion. But I wanted to
yeah,
socialize that early on that's a pivotal thing in your career and as you continue and go through.
absolutely. Shout
Um,
out to the good bros.
yes. So share with our listeners, I mean, government affairs, I don't think a lot of folks know really what that's
Yeah.
about. What is government affairs at an organization, at a corporation?
Yeah, so that's a really fancy way to say lobbyist, right? It's we use those code words. Not everybody loves the L word. I embrace the lobbying term. I feel like it gets a bad rap just because of media and movies, etc. But to dig into it, a little bit, the lobbying profession is it is enshrined in the First Amendment, right? We know the First Amendment around freedom of speech, freedom of press, but also it's the right to petition your government, right? And that's really what lobbying is all about: petitioning your government for redress of grievances. And it's a industry that is also really heavily regulated by the government too. You don't want the folks who are representing insert interest here being able to provide money to folks in an underhanded way or try to gain influence in ways that aren't fully transparent. So there are many forms. All of our information is very Googleable. OpenSecrets.com. It is. OpenSecrets.com will tell you everything that you need to know about what lobbyists are doing on a regular basis in terms of how they're
Wow.
giving it and how they're interacting. So I would just say that it's a industry that gets a bad rap, but is absolutely fundamental to our democracy, right? You think about corporate lobbyists like myself, right, where they are advocating. We are advocating on behalf of our corporations and our employers, but folks who call themselves advocates, who work on the nonprofit side, they do the same job, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're also trying to influence the government on behalf of their employers. Their employer just might be Greenpeace.
Mm.
That's interesting. Well, I like what
Interesting.
you said about that, in the vein of it getting a bad rap, is
Mhm.
the heavy regulation. I don't think folks really
Oh,
understand that well, and I don't think that the transparency piece. So those two things that you mentioned are really critical as you kind of demystify what you do. That lobbyist word and try to break that down. I think those two things were critical that you mentioned there.
Yeah, people. I mean, and it makes a lot of sense, right? Because it's salacious to connect, lobbyists to backroom deals and smoke-filled rooms, and all of that kind of stuff, right? And
It's
it's
the
not that those
envelope.
things, right, precisely, and it's not that those things don't happen. It's just that what we do is every interaction that we have, most of the interactions that we have are really transparent, right? Like you can't sign a check, you can't meet with a member, you can't really influence the government in a meaningful way without it being on Front Street. And now that we have the internet, it makes it even more accessible. So yeah, it's interesting. I'm happy to explain to anyone how transparent the profession is, but I'm glad I got a chance to clear it up a little bit here too.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of, in terms of it being interesting, it's very exciting,
Mhm.
the work that you do. Tangiel and I find it extremely exciting.
Fascinating.
And
Yes.
I don't know how much you can actually share, so I'll throw this out and we'll see. But is there anything that you can share with us that's kind of an interesting story about the work that you do? Maybe a case that you worked on or something that's, in the past. Or if you want to talk about something that you're doing right now that's exciting that you're able to share, so folks can get an understanding of what your role would be in a corporate space.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll be as broad as I possibly can, right? I mean,
Sure.
all of it's in my LDF filing, so it won't be, news to most folks. But when I came on, I'll tell this story. When I came on to Marriott, we I was the first Black person to hold this role, this leadership role in the company's history, which is significant because I lead our federal government affairs shop, and that's not typical. And what I noticed when I came in is that we do a really good job at supporting certain communities, communities of color. Diverse communities as it relates to the legislation that we support, right? Like we've always done a good job at supporting the HRCs, the National Urban Leagues, the NAACPs, et cetera, right? But when it came to where we put our lobbying might, there was we left some money on the table, in my opinion. So
Okay.
one of the things that, was on the first things on the list of things for me to do coming in is to make sure that we advocated effectively for pieces of legislation like the Equality Act, like the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, and others that are we see on TV are argued all the time, right? Like it is,
Hmm.
in my opinion, really important for corporations to do their part, and many of us do their part in advocating effectively for pieces of legislation that mean so much to so many, right? Like the 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 people that those pieces of legislation impact are not just our customers, right? Because that's obvious, right?
Sure.
But there are associates. They're the folks that we know and love, and it's really important that we make sure that we show them in that same way. So that's just a quick glance into from a corporate perspective, in my opinion, ways that our our function can really be impactful to people that matter.
Hmm.
I
Awesome.
like it.
You know what I find interesting about that, again, having spent some time at Marriott myself, is how we met. We
It
started at
is.
the same time.
We did.
Yes, I think what's interesting about that is there's a group of folks at Marriott, and we're connected. We're both connected to all of them that are
Mhm.
doing essentially DEI work at Marriott.
Yep.
So it's the same type of
Hmm.
thing you described here. We all found perhaps a gap. I know that's something that I found in my
Hmm.
organization,
Hmm.
as you did, and then we're all
Yep.
kind of coming together to solve those problems like on our own. Like
Yep.
we understand there's a gap, and you're solving that problem. But there's so many folks like that at Marriott, and that was me as well. So I
Yeah.
thought I didn't even know that about your story. That's pretty
Yeah.
interesting. I didn't even know, but
Mhm.
we were intersecting, so I should have known
Yeah.
that, you know?
Yeah. No, it's all good. I mean, there, and I feel like there's nothing wrong with gaps, right? That's why you elevate diverse leadership, right? So you can further understand the gaps, right? Like there's my dad would say, like, you want to stand on the highest hill and look into the valley, right? It's when you gain more perspective, you can elevate yourself and see more of the playing field, right? And see into the valley. And, when you elevate people of color in these positions, they're able to look into the valley and say, oh, no, actually, we shouldn't be doing that, right? Maybe not that commercial. Or, we have this gap in, from my purview in my role that I feel like we need to fill. So I see it as an opportunity, those kinds of situations as opportunities. And Lishez, appreciate your support always and trying to make sure we do the best we can.
I love it. I love it. So, I mean, one of the
Yeah.
things about this is awesome is that it doesn't have to be localized to one organization. Like that
Right.
work can be done in the different disciplines. I think that's what's so amazing about
It is. It is.
what we participated in. We are doing that work in our own functions and our own disciplines. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. That's, I mean, because you almost have to block and tackle like that, right? Like if you tell too many people, it might not get done. You kind of got to do it in your own little area
That's right.
before everybody else knows about it.
Yes, for sure, for sure. Um, Share maybe some advice for other
Mm.
folks that want to move into government affairs. And this could be early
Yeah.
career, or this could be folks that are looking for a career change. What's some advice to
Yes.
them?
Yeah, I mean, I would say one, the things that I tell folks who are interested in government affairs is that, like, if you can stomach politics, then you'll always have a job, right? Because like 90% of the population can't stomach doing, working in politics, around politics on a regular basis, right? Like they see it on TV, they get, they're disgusted by it, right? So if you can stomach it, right? If you can do that, then we got something to work with. You'll always have a job. There are many different types of jobs in the political sphere, and from a government affairs perspective, doing the lobbying work, there will always be work, right? Because the government will always be there. Now, obviously my purview in this role is the federal government, but as Tangil mentioned. Earlier on in my career, I lobbied on the state level, regional
Yep.
level, local level, right? So there's, multiple different ways to be involved and looking to influence the government as well, which, I would just mention. But when it comes to what I would suggest or, words of wisdom, it's really that, like, politics really is your own, it is what you make it, right? Like, it is a relationship based business that allows you, in my opinion, to chart your own path. Like I have a very atypical path to my role where I am now, right? If you were to ask somebody else who's my counterpart at another organization, at another company, they probably worked for Congressman such and such, right? Then worked on Senator so and so's hill, or campaign, did a presidential, worked in the mayor's office and all of that kind of stuff. I did none of that, right? And it really wasn't, while it might have been helpful when I was first coming along, it wasn't necessary in the long run, right? Because of my not just interest in the subject matter, but willingness to kind of get my hands dirty. So I would say that if you can stomach politics, if you have an interest in any discipline, right? Because government covers all disciplines. If the industry makes money because of taxes, they got to come to the government, right? So there's probably not just a lobbyist that advocates on behalf of that industry, but there are policy issues that need research, need advocacy, and really need a Black and brown folks to be at the helm of those conversations. So I would say just keep at it.
Nice. I think one of the maybe surprising things for myself and the listeners is that you don't have to have a political background. You didn't have to be on the Hill and kind of pounding the pavement that way. You know what I mean? So that's
I mean,
interesting.
I would say, again, I don't want to steer people in the wrong direction. It is helpful, right? Like it is
Yeah.
helpful to have that background, to have those political chops, to have majored in poli-sci and all that. That's all great. People do that and they, are stars in the field. I just noticed as I came up through the ranks that it really wasn't necessary. And I'm a skip the line kind of guy, right? Like, what do I have to do to get the best out of this? So, if I could avoid all of that, then I'm gonna avoid it, right?
Hmm.
And in my opinion, politics really provides the opportunity to skip the line, if you're willing and able to do what it takes to make the relationships.
Hmm,
No,
that's awesome. Candiel, did you have any other questions about government affairs? Because we're going to pivot
no,
into.
actually, you just asked the question I really wanted to ask, and that was, like, what are the top three things? Being a recruiter, you want to know these things, but great answers, great answers. I'm just
Yeah.
super excited to learn more about what else you're into.
Hey, just a few things, you know what I'm saying? Stay busy.
Awesome.
Okay, so we're going to segue now into giving back, right, as a corporate leader. So that's what the
Yeah.
episode primarily is about.
Yeah.
Talk to us about where giving back begins. So I want the context now of you
Yeah.
being, I would call you a servant leader because of what you're doing here, but where does that kind of volunteer behavior, where does that begin for you? What's the context in that? Where does it come from?
Yeah, I mean, it was instilled in me, obviously, with my parents and their servant leadership in our church. With Black folk, that's really critical,
Yes.
and how we're introduced to many things, and servant leadership is one of them. But then also, when I go into college, Virginia Tech has a motto, ut prosim. It's a Latin term that says that I may serve. And it is something that is really interwoven into um, the culture at Tech. While there, I was able to found a organization that really focused on student. Well, it's called Student African American Brotherhood, and bringing young brothers together to make sure that we had at that time community because most folks don't know. I came into Virginia Tech. I'm gonna age myself a little bit, but I came into Tech in '02. Between the years of 2000 and 2004, the Black population at Virginia Tech pretty much doubled. And the university didn't really know what to do with us. So there were many organizations like STOP that were formed in that way, right? To just really provide community, right? And that was just another layer of me leaning into that servant leadership. And then moving forward, right? Obviously, joining the best fraternity in the world, and also even fast forwarding to I feel like the conversation that we will come to have around the 100 Black men of Greater Washington D.C. Along that path, really focusing on giving back and being really intentional about being impactful, right? Like
Mm,
I feel like a lot of times, people have good hearts and they have hearts to serve, but until you're really intentional about it,
mm,
it kind of you get the onesies twosies, right? Like you get the
Sure.
young guy who comes up to you after church and is like, hey, need your help, right? And that's fantastic. There's nothing wrong with that, and everybody gives and serves at their own. In their own measure. But for me, being a part of groups, being a part of organizations that are laser focused on those types of missions is really important. It's it just made it more impactful.
Mm,
I ask you
great.
that question because not everyone has that, right? We've seen
Hmm.
tons of leaders that, hey, I'm busy, and
Hmm.
certainly we all are, but that responsibility or knowing that you need to give back and help others is not something that everyone does. So I knew that there had to
Correct.
be, yeah, there had to be a context to him. There had to be, whether it's your family culture or if it's some type of servant leadership, leadership development. And you explained that, Virginia Tech and also your
Oh yeah,
family. But I knew that there had to be some things there that were instilled in you for you to have that inclination.
yeah. I mean, it came upon me very early, especially in my political career, that nothing that I have has been under my own might, right? It is I stand on the shoulders of many giants.
Yeah.
I mentioned one earlier on with Major Riddick. Like uh, that story, my story, even starting my career, was one that like is really built in exactly what you mentioned, Lachez. Like someone basically saying, look, I got you, right? Like I know you don't
Yeah.
know nothing about this, but I trust your chops, right? And we'll learn along the way together. And
Yep.
we'll be able to do something really, really powerful. And that's something that for me, lifting as I climb is just critically important, right? Because that's what was done to
Ooh.
me. You know what I'm saying? That's what's done
Yes.
for me, I should say.
Yes.
Oh my
I
goodness,
lo-
lifting as you climb. Yes, I knew Tangia would love that. I knew she would love that.
yes, you are a man after my own heart because I've done the exact same thing my entire career.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I
yep.
mean, it's really important, right? Like, I mean, I feel like we, as Black folk, we don't, there's a lot of, again, one offs, right? Where it's like, the guy down the street, the cousin that needs help, or whatever the case may be. But collectively, that's how we move forward, right? That's how we, are able to really succeed or do the best we can trying to succeed
Hmm.
these days. So I'm all for it.
Awesome.
Yeah, I applaud you for that because it's more work, right? I mean, it would be easy to just
Yeah,
move about through your career unbothered, right? And just do what you
yeah,
need to do and navigate your steps and so on and think about yourself. And that's okay too. But I think that it's so much more to you that you
yeah,
choose to reach back and you choose to give back to your community. I think this just makes you
yeah.
more.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, it's also like a personality trait too. So, it's something I don't always feel like you have to. I am as I get older learning that you don't have to do it the same way, right? Like because of people's personalities, the way they give back doesn't always have to look the same, and that's great.
Right.
But choosing to do so, in my opinion, is paramount.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a couple things I love about what you said. I want to re-socialize it. So
Yeah.
to me, no one is self-made. I might have even said that to
Mhm.
you, Eric. I've said that to so many people. The
Yeah.
people that say that and tout that are liars. You know what I
I,
mean?
I got
Straight up
nothing for
liars.
you. Yeah, exactly. You said it.
No
I
one.
didn't.
No one, no one is
Yeah.
self-made. You
Mhm.
got something from someone, a whole bunch of
Yep.
people. So I
A
That's
love
whole
the
right.
bunch.
people. I love the people that acknowledge that. There's so many people that walk around here like, oh, well, I did this. Sure, you did a lot of things, and you
Yeah.
should be applauded for those things. But there were so many people, if you just simply look back, that helped you to get to where you are. I love that. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
For
then
sure.
also mentors and sponsors. Tangela and I talk about that.
All the
Your
time.
corporate IQ talks about,
Yeah.
the importance of mentors and sponsors. And you had a
Yeah.
sponsor actually early on. It's really
I
hard to
did.
get those. It's hard to get a sponsor.
Yeah.
That's really paramount to find yourself a sponsor for something, someone that can move you into a new opportunity. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he started as a mentor, right? Because you had to build that trust, and then it was able to move to a sponsor relationship, right? And
Hmm.
it's those two things I tell students who are in college or fresh out of college and getting into the government affairs space, like the politics, because it's all about relationships, gives you an opportunity to build those mentors and those sponsors really quickly, really early.
Hmm.
So being intentional about who those mentors are, who your potential sponsors can be, and who talks highly about you when you're not in the room is super important.
Oh,
And
yeah.
again, like in my opinion, just in politics, it's kind of like on steroids a bit.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So how did you come to learn and get involved in 100 Black Men in Greater Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, so it's funny. I had known about the organization more broadly, but the current president, a gentleman named James Thompson, and he's the president for the Greater Washington D.C. chapter, the chapter that I'm a part of. I met him in Annapolis while I was lobbying. I actually was lobbying his boss at the time, right? He used to work for. He was chief of staff to a delegate, now senator, named Nick Charles out of Prince George's County. So I'm in his office. I see another black man. We're about the same age, and we start chopping it up, right? And come to build a friendship. build a strong relationship. And he's like, look, man, at that time, I think he was the mentoring chairman of the chapter. And he tells me all about it, right? He's like, dude, I think it would be awesome to come into the chapter and all that kind of good stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, let me look into it a little bit. So that's how I started. And I started going to the Saturday Leadership Academy programs. That's the flagship mentoring program for the organization for our chapter, where we mentor Black boys from 6th grade to 12th grade. I brought my oldest son with me. EJ, he's a twin. He's 16 now. He has a twin sister, and I brought him with me along for the ride. And he's in 10th grade now, and he's been in SLA for since then. So since 2019, and it's been a great ride. And it's just it was a great opportunity to build a relationship with James. And then be introduced to the organization in that way. I was really fortunate.
Wow. Again, it's just using that personality that you have, which I think I have to socialize that. You have a great personality. So it's easy to
Thank you.
talk to you and it's easy for you to build relationships. You're a relationship builder. So that's something that we have to socialize for the listeners too, knowing how to build relationships, right, Tangiel?
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
Knowing.
I have to jump in right here because I was
please.
taking notes. So what I heard was you got some good home training, right? I heard that. I heard,
For sure.
that surely you have great education under your belt now. I heard a bit of early spiritual
Amen.
leadership, right?
Amen. Amen.
Amen. I heard brotherhood, but most importantly, I think you said you were from New York. See a little some of that. If you notice, every time he sees someone that he has something in common with, he says, "Let me go over here and chop it up with him right there."
That's
That's a
that's a
little New
fact.
York flavor, right? So, wow, that makes you a dangerous, to say the least.
Well, look, if I learn a little bit of something about a lot of, then I'm be dangerous,
You'll
right?
be dangerous.
So yeah,
No,
yeah.
great,
No,
well put together. I applaud you truly. You are a rare brother indeed.
I appreciate that, friends. Just trying to feed these kids. That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
No, that's right.
That's it.
I know that's right. Provide us with some more kind of foundational information about the
Hmm.
chapter. Um, what are some of the other programs? You mentioned a little bit now, but some more
Yeah.
information about the programs, and
Yes.
we'll get into later on how folks can get involved, but start off with more foundational info.
Yeah. I'll zoom all the way out, right? Because our chapter, while amazing, it is a part of a national organization, right? So the 100 Black Men of America was actually founded in 1963, and it was in New York by former Mayor David Dinkins, the first Black mayor of New York City,
Ah,
and
Dinkins.
Mm,
yeah, and Jackie Robinson, and many others.
mm,
Those brothers came together really to try to confront challenges that they saw with Black youth at the time. And our chapter specifically was founded in 1995, and that came out of the outcry and the call of action during the Million Man March. Right? You remember
Mm,
oh yeah.
that time in D.C. 11 brothers after the Million Man March came together to form our chapter. And I would say since 1995, the chapter we've mentored over 15,000 students. And
Awesome.
right now we have we have a 100% graduation rate for the last 6 years. So
wow.
it's been a great ride. We've actually won Chapter of the Year in 2019 and 2022. You
Awesome.
can't win back to back, so we'll see how it goes for this year in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
But as an organization and as a chapter, our pillars are really focused on mentoring, as I mentioned, education, health and wellness, and economic empowerment. So all of our
Nice.
programs are some way tied to those pillars. I mentioned the Saturday Leadership Academy. That's our flagship program that focuses on leadership development, obviously mentoring for those young students. But then we also have STEM the 100 way. We know that science,
Mm,
technology, engineering, and math is something that our our Black boys aren't introduced to as quickly or as readily as they should. So we have programming that reaches almost 1,000 students per year, where we introduce them to STEM all around the greater Washington, D.C. area. So that's just, another example of how we interact and engage with the community. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Collegiate 100. There
There you go.
are the Collegiate 100 is a ancillary organization. Our chapter is based at Howard University. I went to Hampton, so I try not to give them as much grief. But we love our collegiate so very much. You're really the life's-blood of the organization, right? Like when we come together with our Saturday Leadership Academy students, right? They're in 9th, 10th grade, all the way up to seniors in high school, and they look to us and they see, uncles, fathers, maybe even grandfathers, right? But when they look to the collegiate, right, they see someone that they can be in the next 4 years, right? That's much more attainable for them to look at them and see them and build a relationship with them that's different than what they do with us. The motto for the organization is what they see is what they'll be. And I think that,
Ooh.
between the collegiate chapter and the 100 more broadly, we provide that guidance and give them that opportunity to see something that they can be.
Very nice.
Yeah. Awesome. So the collegiate
Yeah.
chapter, that
Mhm.
is that for Howard students only, or is that open to other university students?
Right now, it's for Howard students only. There are plans to potentially open it. I know that they don't love that idea, but because they won Chapter of the Year as well recently when we won last year, or the last time in 2022. They also won Collegiate Chapter of the Year. So they do an absolutely phenomenal job with our students. And some 100 Black Men chapters around the country, their collegiate chapters encompass more than one university. But ours just has Howard as of right now.
That's all right. I mean, you have to start
Yeah,
somewhere,
yeah.
and Howard's a
Oh, yeah, yeah.
fantastic school. So that's
It's
Yes,
that's
it
awesome
is.
it's a
stuff.
it's a phenomenal school, and again, the students are the collegiate. I think their collective GPA is like 3.8 or something like that. It's crazy.
Wow.
Wow.
They do a phenomenal job. I'm really proud of them.
Awesome.
Awesome. What are some of the requirements, right? So now we're going to get into how can folks join? What are the
Yeah.
requirements for these high school students? What's
Oh,
required?
yeah. Yeah, from a from an SLA perspective or just a high school student perspective, we require you to show up and be serious.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's really what it boils down to. We're not playing around, right? When it comes to not just mentoring, but what we holding our students to high account. The former mentoring chairman, now vice president of operations, Dr. Eric Bell. We have a lot of, he's a military guy. We have a lot of military guys in our organization. So and we ain't messing around, right? I would say folks, the students that I encourage to participate in the Saturday Leadership Academy to come ready to be challenged. You know, in a way that's provides you with safety first, right? Because we want to provide safe spaces. You don't want to put kids in positions where they feel uncomfortable. But then also to be I would say to be challenged more broadly, right? With your academics, with your how you think about money. We talk about economic empowerment all the time. With your health. Health and wellness, as I mentioned, is a huge part of what we do and one of our pillars. So coming with the mind frame to be challenged, I think, is really the biggest requirement. And it's one that, I can attest. My oldest son, EJ, that I mentioned, that participates in the program, it's been a literally life-changing experience for him.
Awesome.
Oh, I love this. I love this.
Mhm.
It's like, and you can teach him as you go. Because again,
Hmm.
back to like the bandwidth and time, right? It's
Yeah,
like you're trying
yeah,
to do so many things, and so you can bring your son along,
Oh yeah.
and do the work you want to do and help him along. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. He actually went to Nashville, Tennessee with our chapter. Nissan does a career readiness program with the
Oh,
100 Black Men of America. Our chapter participates every year. This was his first year participating as a member of the SLA. So even just seeing him coming back from that, experience, and the kind of young man that he's growing into, I'm really proud of him.
That's great.
oh my goodness, my goodness. Now, do they have to the students, do they have to maintain a certain kind of GPA or grades? Is there a certain stipulations to remain in the program, you know?
Hmm.
While we don't necessarily have stipulations on GPA, I can attest that our GPA on average rises about 4 points for students that participate. And that's on average. So you have students like my son whose GPA has risen above that, and it I think it's in a you can what you can attest to that is folks holding you accountable, right? When you're
Sure.
coming twice a month on Saturdays, learning about all of these pillars that we mentioned, seeing other young men taking it as seriously as you, and having mentors, members of the 100, members of the collegiate, that pour into you the way that we do. I think it makes it that much easier to buckle down and get to it.
I love it. I love it. Do you have speakers come in and kind of speak to the students? Is that a part of the program as well?
Yeah, it is. Depending on the subject matter for that session, but we have had speakers come in. We welcome folks who are subject matter experts in, like I said, the economic empowerment piece. I'll pick on that one just a little bit because I need to shout out Wells Fargo because they're a huge supporter of the organization, and our chapter specifically. So utilizing some subject matter experts and Black men that work in Wells Fargo and organizations like that to come in and talk to the students about financial literacy, talk to them about science, technology, engineering, and math, talk to them about health and wellness, has been really a critical part of like how we stay connected to the community, right? Because you want to work with folks who, are in the community.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Are you able to have, or do you have kind of women speakers, so Black women that can come in as, in solidarity, right? We're here to support you.
Oh,
Same
yeah.
thing with the Million Man March. I remember it was
Yes.
like, I was in DC, and so you had the women that were supporting in solidarity, from afar, right? So it's like the men have
Yep.
to do their thing, and this is about them, but you also felt a sense of, hey, there's solidarity with us. We're supporting you guys. So how can
Absolutely.
Black women,
Yeah.
support in
Yeah,
solidarity?
absolutely. Well, please, if you're a subject matter expert in any of those topics, we would love to have you speak to our students. We also partner with Black women organizations to host events, to raise money for the organization. I'm happy to
Mhm.
continue to do that. And really sending us your boys, right? Like we want your boys to be a part of our program. The program has significantly, the SLA program specifically, has significantly grown over just the time that I've been a part of the chapter. I came in 2020, so since been in, we've gone from about 50 young men to now we're close to 150.
Wow.
And we meet with these students twice a month. So that's another thing that I would just add in terms of solidarity and just and support is like if you know of a Black woman who has a young son, he doesn't have to be in trouble. It doesn't have to be one of those situations. It could be, but it doesn't have to be. We still want him to participate.
Mhm.
I love it. I love it. My son is 6 now, but he will definitely
Yeah,
be,
it's
he's
coming.
definitely gonna be in there.
My youngest is 7. He don't even know what hit him. He think it's all sweet out here until he got to come to SLA and do some push-ups.
Like, look, Xavier, you're gonna be in this organization called
Right.
100.
Yes, yes, yes. And
That
that's
was
the
my
thing.
son.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing I really appreciate about the 100 is, for me, it's it's the biggest tent in the room, right? Like, you have we have military men, we have non-military men, we have Black Greek brothers, we have brothers who aren't Greek, we have gay men, we have straight men, we have all different types of Black men in the organization. You don't have to be any particular type to be really focused on the service that is really important to the community in the Greater Washington area. So it's an honor and a pleasure to be able to work with those brothers.
Oh, and it's so foundational, I think, to success to
Hmm.
have this type of
Hmm.
mentorship early
Yes,
on. So I'm so happy that you start at the high school level because that's really when you
Yeah,
start to get in there with students early on and
yeah.
provide the foundation of mentorship so they can be successful moving into college and graduate school and so on.
Yeah, and we're even trying to start a little bit earlier. We try to use sixth grade as the cutoff, right? Because like sometimes, sitting and listening for too long for kids who are younger than sixth grade is a bit difficult. But even earlier than high school would be better, right? Like
yes.
middle school would be ideal,
Hmm.
because that's when we start seeing statistically the separation between, not just our boys, but just children in general.
Yes.
Yes, yes. And they've already started career coaching. Certainly, my daughter's in middle school, and so they've already started to engage them with career coaching. So it's
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
absolutely appropriate to start with the
Sure.
mentorship programs in middle school as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed 100%. We all know middle school. Anybody who has kids, and even if you don't have kids, you just remember middle school is an
Correct.
absolute terrible time. It's a terrible time. I feel like kids are the worst humans they ever are
That's
at
right.
that point in their lives.
That's right.
Well, with that, Tangio, close us on out.
Wow, this is so amazing. This is one of my favorites, Lachette. Eric, you just did
Yeah.
your thing. I really enjoyed this.
Hey,
One of my favorites.
that makes me
Well,
happy.
yes. So, Eric, I'm sure you're probably as a lobbyist, you're everywhere. Do you have a following? Do you have a public following? If people wanted to know more about you or what you're
Yeah.
into, particularly the 100 Black Men?
Please, well, first follow the 100 Black Men for sure, right? 100blackmendc.com. You can go there. You can donate. You can find all of the socials. It's 100 Black Men DC on all platforms. Follow us. Do all that. If you want to follow me, I'm pretty boring. I'm a lame guy, just a dad trying to feed the family. But Eric underscore Johnston 3 at really in Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, whatever it's
Awesome.
called now, X or whatever. I don't know what it's called.
Right. Well, folks, you've heard it here. Stay tuned for more episodes of your Corporate IQ podcast. We're interested in hearing from you. Send us your topics, your suggestions to info@yourcorporateiq.com. Like us and engage with us as well on what? IG, LinkedIn. We're everywhere, right? Even TikTok,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. We're
We would
everywhere.
love to build an online community with you to increase your corporate IQ, of course. So if you're interested in coaching, networking, any of the services that we offer, even if you want to get into, some lobbying, we know who to call. All right. So reach out and thank you again and stay tuned till next time. See you later.
Bye.
Planning on changing the world just like me. You could be the chairwoman and I'll be the trustee. Let me give all to your benefit. Then I'll get blessed out my deficit.